Hello and welcome to another episode of Fintech Focus TV with me, Toby. Today, absolutely delighted to bring another in the series of the companies who have made the list of the most influential fintechs 2021 in the Financial Technologist magazine. I am delighted to bring to you Dishang Patel of A Leading Point. Dishang, how are you?
Very good, Toby. Thank you for having me.
Listen, great to have you on board. And we last spoke when you were listed in the same magazine's Ultimate Fintech Workplace Awards at the end of last year. That was a conversation I thoroughly enjoyed. It's the first time on the show to have you here now though. So I'm so pleased to have you on, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the business, and I also want to go into what you've done with regards to your culture as well, because I think there's some spectacular stuff to add on there. So thoroughly looking forward to this conversation, and great to have you on. Before we go into all of that, can you give us a little bit of background to yourself, to the business, and what Leading Point do?
Absolutely, yeah. Delighted to be here, as I said. So thanks again. So background on myself, at Leading Point, I'm a founding partner and COO. So responsible for obviously a lot of the operational side of things, including people, but also from an external standpoint, making sure the excellence of our operational delivery stands up to the highest of standards, whether that be from a sort of advisory perspective or a technology delivery perspective. So that segues nicely into why I'm in that position, because my background, although I'd studied a technical degree, it's never really been in the development world. It's always been in the business-facing world of technology, all the way from fintechs back in the day when fintech wasn't even a word, to now fintech is the most talked about word in London, certainly around Silicon Roundabout and the like. So I've run and co-run a venture capital business. I've had other businesses. So, we all very much come from entrepreneurial mindsets and backgrounds, certainly the leadership team and others in the team as well. And from a business perspective, that led us to when we sort of came to the realization that we need to shake things up a little bit in the market. When Leading Point was sort of born, the genesis of it was more to ensure clients got better and got more of what they deserved, rather than what people were suggesting they required, right? So our business model is three-pronged, hence the logo, or a triangular shaped logo. First of all, we help with consulting services, but it's technology-enabled consulting services. I don't really like to use the term consulting because it's a lot more than consulting, but that's what the market understands. So we'll stick to that. The second is our products that we've built. So we've got proprietary products we've built around the data world, because data is a big problem and it's an area of expertise for us. And thirdly and finally, ventures. So we have worked and partnered with organizations in lieu of fees sometimes, equally starting ventures from scratch to launch into the market. And we've seen some good successes so far in that as well. And I think, and I hope it comes across, the thread is technology here. We really do believe that technology has to be leveraged to deliver better customer outcomes. Customers are the center of everything for us. So as a sort of a concluding point, what I would say is customers using technology rather than just using the offline services a consulting shop would normally provide helps accelerated outcomes. And we are all about accelerated outcomes. I've said to you before, Toby, but for the benefit of today, I really do not believe that value is in the head. Value is in the tail for us as an organization. So we want to build long-lasting relationships. It's not about making lots of money and lots of margin at the onset just because you can. It's about making sure the client feels it's a win for them first, and then it's a win-win for everyone in the long term.
There's so much to get my teeth into in what you've just said. So I'm going to start by that sort of rather unique business model you've got there. And I'm interested in it because of its uniqueness. And I've spoken to companies who've morphed into, consulting companies that morphed into product companies. There's obviously a lot of opportunity in that venture side, and your backgrounds of the leadership team are fascinating, within that, and again, very unique. And I think when you look at that leadership team background, when you look at the ability to look at three different angles that the business has had, to me, that sort of sets things up rather nicely for difficult times as well as more opportunistic times. And over the last 12 months as a human species, we've obviously faced one of the most difficult times that we've had in over 100 years. Within that, there are businesses that have had to pivot and do different things completely to what they've been doing. There's businesses there who've played what I call very much on the offense rather than defense, and sort of grown into it and attack the problems. and there's businesses that have been able to sort of adapt to what they've been doing. Give us your experience of the last 2 years and having that sort of multifaceted, three-pronged approach, how that's helped, and if that, I think sometimes when you've got a business like that, if one bit's up, the other bit's down. If one, if it gives you that little bit more sustainability and durability to endure tough times. Have you seen, a sort of movement at various different phases through the last year or so with which bits up and which bits down? Does it help that you've been there, or is it that sort of laser focus that's sort of helped other businesses get through this? To be, I'm really interested in, you can see where I'm going with about 15,000 questions to you at once. But
yeah, no, I do absolutely. And look, first of all, I will say that it's been a challenge for everyone. However, as any of the top investors and business people in the world will tell you, most successes are made in downturns, not upturns.
Yeah.
So it's really important to that point you made about laser focus. It's not necessarily laser focusing on one area. It's focusing on where you can essentially benefit as a business. And there's multiple areas and ways to think about this, right? One of the biggest challenges in having a multifaceted business is that you have a multifaceted business. And therefore maintaining a laser focus is tough sometimes. But this is why I mentioned earlier that thread is technology. Now, as long as we maintain our focus on technology and the way we leverage technology, whether that be in the consulting world or in our products or via ventures, we know we can make sure that our focus is maintained. So that's absolutely key. Has the pandemic affected us? 100% it has. There's been a lot of firms out there, I'm not saying in our world necessarily, but generally businesses out there that have benefited from the pandemic, right? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But this is where our entrepreneurial guise comes into play. Look, no one's experienced this before, but we've experienced recessions before, and not long ago actually, right? But the reality is that you learn more from failures and situations like that than you do from successes. And being entrepreneurs has taught us that the hard way, frankly. So we don't see the downturn as a problem. It's a hurdle, sure, but it's absolutely an opportunity. So what we did to navigate that was, and the way I like to think about it in terms of navigation is, you can't be standing still. If we'd stood still last year, in my opinion, we'd be moving backwards. So what we did is we looked at all the different avenues that we could explore, and we really honed in on collaboration, right? Whether that be with tech partners, whether that be with sales agencies, maybe, whether that be with other solution providers. For us, there's such a big pie. For everyone, there's such a big pie. There's no reason to want to eat it all yourself. And we really believe collaboration is the way forward. And to that point, we've worked with different organizations in the last 12 months. We've tried to sign partnerships with other organizations. Some worked out, some didn't. For instance, there was obviously an announcement at the beginning of the year that we signed a partnership with a business called AuraChain to help us improve our client delivery on the business process management automation side of things with the enablement of blockchain. And this is where, when I talk about technology, we have but everyone has their own skill sets, but we are sort of managing our traditional skill sets and adding the technology components. So the people we hire is key as well, right? Making sure that we're moving apace with the market, whether that be technology, and it could be non-technology technical environments such as ESG. We've launched a solution in the ESG space because we see over the last 4 years, during my investing days, I remember ESG was talked about a lot, but really only confined to the investment world, so private equity and venture capital in the world I was in. But now it's become very mainstream. Everyone is doing it. Everyone is talking about it, right? So it's not necessarily about being the first, but it's important not to be the last. So, and to not be last, you have to sometimes put your hand up and say, this is not something we're good at. Where can we find partners to collaborate with? Or where can we find approaches that are collaborative rather than standalone, which actually decelerates your approach to any market?
Yeah, I think there's a very interesting part around that, and one of the sort of themes that I've seen, or trends that I've seen grow throughout the year, has been the sort of power of collaboration, full stop, in the financial markets. Be that led through blockchain, which where obviously collaboration is its very core, and we're slowly starting to see the next phase of adoption around the technology surrounding that, or the increased use of APIs in cloud and what that's done to to everyone. It seems to me that even the major institutions are recognizing this is far more from the sort of standalone, stiff upper lip, puff your chest out sort of individual, success of your business, to recognizing this is more about an ecosystem, and allowing those sort of, someone termed it to me the other day, they're putting the right pieces of the jigsaw into your jigsaw, and making sure that the systems that you have suit you specifically. Collaboration for me has been an area where we're seeing a number of different companies sort of work together to provide, to look at a problem and say, look, let's really focus on the area that we know about, and bring in other people who know about the other bits of the problem that can all link together. And there's about 4 or 5 vendors, I think, in particular, who are spending a lot of time really working together to make sure that they can provide collective solutions to individuals' problems, and that then helps drive the whole industry further forward. And for you guys to recognize that, and to be able to push that agenda further forward, I think it comes back to that whole thing of you putting your, the interest of the customers at the start of it, which I think when you're looking at both a product business and a professional services business at the same sort of time, so traditionally it's probably worked in counterbalance. When you look at that sort of and I think you said this before, that your culture is very much defined by your customer. That's an interesting way of looking at things, isn't it? Making sure everyone wins and the customer wins first defines your internal culture, which is, if you read about some of the great customer success stories of all time, they very much have that sort of mantra to what they're doing. But that thinking in the interest of the customer, I understand, is very much the sort of watchword of you, be it in the venture side, be it in the product side, or being in the consulting side. Is that very much a point of the background of all of you guys as founders there that drives that mentality?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Raj and Tush and myself strongly believe that if you deliver value to the customer has got to perceive that as value, right? I mean, that sounds like an obvious statement, but the problem is often what happens, and to the point you made around products versus services, certainly I've got a long background in software and software sales and delivery and all that kind of fun stuff. And often it's about round hole square peg, right? What is it that the client actually wants versus what is it that you want to sell the client and you want them to use? And often this is where I think things are changing, and it's certainly where we're taking a different approach. I don't think it is any longer acceptable, and it shouldn't have been a long time ago, but better late than never. It shouldn't have ever been the case where a customer says, I want this, and then the rhetoric is, but actually you should have this, right? Okay, you want that. Let's understand why you want that. Let's make sure we give you the best solution. And this is where the consulting services, which is technology enabled, that component of our business helps, because we go in with independent hat. It's almost like if our product is the best product for that solution, for that problem, then that's what we'll suggest. If it's a different solution, that's what we'll suggest. That's the independent hat that we wear, because, as you said, the customer is central to this. If we deliver what the customer wants and needs, more to the point, rather than what we think they want or need, actually, that's going to lead to better outcomes. Now, do not get me wrong, Toby. Sometimes a customer has very vague or very high level requirements, right? And it's our job as a business to make sure we get to the weeds and make sure we really understand. And that's something we've done for many years in industry, whether that be in consulting or working directly in banks or for hedge funds and all that kind of stuff. So, and also as a software house, right? I mean, for example, one of the venture businesses I work with today, I operate as a COO. And the reality is that not every business is equal. So you have to identify where the gaps are and plug those gaps. This is why they hire us as experts. This is why they hire us and say, we trust you. I mean, it's quite an important role in a business when you're early on to hire an external party. And right, so we've seen great success there. The point I made earlier about ventures, we wouldn't be taking positions in organizations if we didn't think there was a long-term benefit. But ultimately, the long-term benefit has got to be for their end client, their end customer. And that's where our value comes through there as well. Because we're saying, okay, forget you're our client, yes, this tech organization, but your end client's got to see the value. How do we maximize that? So it filters through, is the point I'm making.
Yeah, and I think it filters through. You mentioned beforehand there about that. There's companies there who've been affected and others who've been fueled by what's happened over the last couple of years. Let's focus on Leading Point a little bit now and sort of say, look, that your customer centricity has been the sort of guiding light that's allowed the business to to sort of progress over the course of the last the last year. Let's have a look at some of the successes of the last year, and what that means is to look. You've been, as we say, you've been nominated and listed as one of the most influential fintechs for 2021 in the magazine. Within that, what I want to look at is some of those exciting things that really sort of shine further forward. That gives you the sort of energy and enthusiasm and excitement. Saying 2021 is this coiled spring that's waiting to be released at the moment, which I think is so prevalent in so much of the economy. Full stop. Right now, I'm very, very excited for on all levels about this year. Just in terms of the release of the economy as a whole, in terms of everything we see with the vaccinations and everything past there. There is a very sizable opportunity that I think is sat in front of most businesses out there in the marketplace who've been able to endure the last 12 months or so. Give me a little bit of a background to some of those wins over the last year or so, and then also what we can look forward to hearing about you, reading about you guys over the course of the next year as well.
First of all, I think our biggest win, I want to call this out, is our people. We're nothing without our people, and we can talk about this more later. I know you mentioned you wanted to touch on it earlier.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what I will say is that that's underpinned by our culture, and we talked a little bit about that from a customer standpoint. But so we've been lucky enough to hire well, and because our cultural sort of prerequisites underpins how we hire, we have very low attrition, which is a company our size is actually unusual, I would say, because people are always looking for the next best thing, right? So one such hire is Peter Walquist. Peter is an entrepreneur himself. He had a business, Raven, which was in the legal space, which he exited and sold to a large US business, a digital business itself. So again, adding to the mix of entrepreneurial experience in the team. But Peter's come on as our CPO, Chief Product Officer, because just to answer your question, we've seen some real gaps in the product space. Hence the reason one of our prongs is product, because that product is around data silo. I mean, I call it a silo, but I mean, data is just huge, right? So we feel that data, for many, many years in banking, especially in financial services, most certainly, there's been sort of moves to try and organize and better manage and better use data, but there's not really been any successes. And we've taken a bit more of a simplistic approach to it and saying, okay, what if we could just organize the data so you can consume it better, rather than the production of data, which everyone does. We're taking a different stance. We're saying, okay, we're going to look at the consumption of that data, and therefore the digestion and the ability for senior management and other people in the organization to use that data better. So we've seen some success there. We've got three main areas in that. One is regulatory risk management. Secondly is ESG. And the third is a bit more nascent, but it's in the startup ecosystem, just to help people better make decisions, to better execute on business plans, and actually track as well, frankly. And hopefully, certainly in the risk management space, save on fines and things like that. So that's been a big success for us. Secondly, I mean, obviously you guys were kind enough to recognize us on your list, but we've also won another award, which I don't think is public yet, so I'm not allowed to say, but it's in the data space for a project we did previously for a large bank. So, we've seen that success. We've actually won a couple of projects in the last few months at some real data heavyweights, because even the guys who are data heavyweights need help in data, ironically. And it just talks to our ability to actually help them better manage and understand and even organize their data, so that they can either grow, access a new marketplace, or just organize what they have better to be able to sell more frictionless, right? So that's been definitely a win. And maybe the last one I'll call out is our ventures. So we have a business which we launched last year. It recently went live with 40 plus football clubs. I mean, this is completely left field. This is a data play. It went live with 40 football clubs in the Japanese J League. It's a digital auditing tool that we've built. So again, it's a separate entity, but it's a venture. We have a part in it. We take an active role in it. And then the other business, as I mentioned, I was acting COO of, That's seen great success. It's had some great fundraising. We've grown the client base, obviously something that I own as my duty as a COO, and we've brought the product on leaps and bounds. So, we're seeing multiple successes in very different ways, actually. It's quite difficult to decipher if it's not explained. If I said to you, I do all these things, you wouldn't necessarily understand why, but they're all interlinked. They're either interlinked with technology and or data, and that's basically where we're playing.
I love that. I just you will have seen me sort of a smile growing across my face as we're hearing that. These sort of good news stories through difficult times have been things that have really sort of energized, and I've got some great feedback from people loving to hear of businesses winning at this stage, and to hear you talking about it as winning with people and then also adding value, I think is a really special thing. And I love hearing about businesses who've been successful in fundraising through this sort of time as well, because that's not easy right now. And that is testing.
Yes.
I think no money is being frivolously spent in investment at the moment. So people are backing those ventures where they see genuine solving of problems. It's far from frivolous these days, and there's a lot more steps and hoops to jump through to allow that sort of thing to happen. Well, so
the irony on the fundraising front, actually, Toby, is that there is a lot of dry powder in the market, and there's a lot of money to be deployed.
That comes back to the cord spring aspect as well, right? There is,
exactly.
I absolutely agree with that. Sorry, cut in from you, but I'm not.
No, not at all. All I was going to say is that it, as you say, to house that money is becoming more difficult, because it's a double-edged sword, right? Investors or LPs in funds are actually finding that their money is not being deployed as fast as they want, because if the money is not deployed, it means it's not working for them. It's just actually depreciating in real inflationary terms. Exactly. Equally, if it gets deployed and it doesn't work out, then obviously the portfolio manager, whoever it is, gets it in the neck. So a lot of the money out there. I mean, look, we know SoftBank's Innovation Fund and how big that is, and that's been around for a few years. But the reality is that a lot of money is being deployed in latter stage investments rather than early stage. I mean, there is money in early stage, but if you look at the stats, it's just not incomparable. I mean, it's for obvious reasons. When you're raising in Series D, E, F, the numbers are naturally going to be larger than if you're raising in pre-Series A or seed or Series A. But equally, the number of deals, it's staggering. So you're right, you have to be on the ball. I mean, we have ambitions of raising a very, very small amount of money just to help us accelerate our products side of our business. Only because with that ability, you'll be able to deliver faster. You'll be able to actually realize value faster. We could do it. We've bootstrapped. We've not taken a penny externally to date. We've been around for almost 4 years now. But sometimes you have to make a decision as a business that it maybe makes sense to effectively reduce the noise and therefore concentrate on the area.
It's really interesting you say that, because it's a conversation I've been having regularly. Even over the course of the last couple of months, it's accelerated that conversation. There's businesses there that have bootstrapped, they've done it themselves, they've moved into that sort of thing. They probably never thought that they would look for institutional investment externally to do that. But it gets to the stage, and this comes to offense, defense sort of conversation again. It gets to the stage where this has now shone a light on the rapid speed of transformation, opportunity, and digitalization that's out there at the moment. To say, look, if we don't take that investment right now, we could be missing out on an opportunity to really turbocharge and boost the business. And there's been some notable companies. I had a great conversation yesterday with Philip Miller at Solidatus, who's just done a Series A. Again, probably didn't think he'd take money, and he's coming to terms with that sort of process at the moment. But the scale of what he's looking at was really inspiring to speak about. And then other people like yourselves who are just on that precipice of thinking, do we, don't we? And what can we do to then speed it? So I think it's a really interesting period. And as you say, there is a lot of pent up institutional money that's ready to be released at the moment. And I think it's really, really important that people think very hard about A, taking that, but B, alongside that, also who are the right people to take it from? How's that going to really help our business? Are they aligned to our ambitions? Are they aligned to our values? Are they the right sort of partners for it? Because as we know, there is a huge failure rate of Series A getting to Series B, and I think the predominant part of that is who you're partnering with. Have you made the right choices, and who are those partners for it? Very, very interesting space to be talking about.
Exactly, and there is a term in investing, certainly in the venture space. It's called intelligent capital, and there's some money as well. And that's not derogatory towards the investor. It basically means that can the investor add value? So is it intelligent capital?
Yeah,
So some people don't want that, and there is a challenge, and this is where you have to make a call whether it's institutional capital you need or if it's actually friends and family / seed capital,
yeah,
because you can get seed capital through friends and family or industry experts who are willing to help you and not go down the institutional route, because there's a lot
yeah.
of admin and a lot of hoops to jump through when you
Well,
take
it's a
institutional capital.
diversion, isn't it? It diverts you away from it, and Series A, Series B is probably one of the most stressful periods of anyone's, the leadership of anyone running a business, and even the sort of responsibility that comes after it as well, right?
Yeah, well, that's the point I'm making. The responsibility is, it's a bit like Spider-Man, I guess, but with great money comes great responsibility. And, and this is the reality, is that if you do that, it's great because it helps you accelerate the business, but equally you have more eyes on you. Your board structure is going to change. Your cap table, as a result, would obviously change, and you're not the sole decision maker as a management team anymore, right? So
Yeah,
look, with my background, I appreciate all these things, and this is why we think we're well positioned to determine what the best way forward might be. There's no guarantee we're going to achieve the success we want to achieve in terms of fundraising and from whom, because sometimes it's a question of opportunity as well. But at least we have that perspective to fall back on.
it's a good position to be in, isn't it? So exciting times for yourself and the business. Let's move on to you as a business. We had a great chat at the end of last year regarding the workplace itself. So leading point as a place to work. You've spoken about the importance of people and how, as has long been my sort of soapbox sort of moment, people are the fuel and the real value of any business in the world. If you've got great people and a terrible product, that terrible product can become a great product. If you've got a great product and terrible people, it's likely to go one way with regards to what happens to that as well. And I think what I loved about that conversation we had at the back end of last year was, it's no coincidence that you are a great place to work, and you were listed rightfully on that listing, and there's some wonderful things that you were doing. Tell me a little bit about how you would really define, or how you have defined and described the culture over at Leading Point as well, because I really enjoyed hearing about this last time.
Yeah, look, I think first of all, and everyone says this, but it's about doing, right? It's inclusiveness. The main point is having a voice. I heard something the other day that said that the question was, you're at the table, but do you have a voice at the table? And that's a really important point, because first of all, we don't really hire people who are necessarily just out of university or just finished or just left school or whatever it is. I mean, we're looking to do that as we grow, of course, because it's important to have different levels of perspective. But having people who've got experience, whether that be 2 years or 5 years or 7 years or 25 years, everyone comes with a different mindset, everyone with a different perspective. But the key to all of this is, in our opinion at least, is diversity. You'll see the people who work in our organization, and we are very much a proponent of diverse hiring. The reason being is because that perspective that people bring is just different, and different is good because it gets people questioning. I get worried when I'm sitting in a meeting and I'm saying something and everyone's nodding their head and agreeing with me, because I know I'm not right. That's a problem, and that's not the way the workplace should be. People should be challenging, and that's where we've been fortunate. So when I said earlier about hiring based on our culture, it's about all these things, right? It's making sure that having that right mindset, not feeling scared, having a flat hierarchy. We don't have. From a position perspective to the external world, we have to give titles and things like that. But internally, everyone has access to everyone. There is no sort of glass ceilings in that sense, or corner offices type syndromes, and that's what really fuels our success. Also, I mentioned it earlier, it's the entrepreneurial mindset. We really, really like people who think, and I said it already differently. A term that's overused is thinking outside the box. But what in my opinion, that really means is, all right, you've got convention, but what is different to convention that could also work, right? Why are we not questioning it? Just because every consulting business in the world sells bums on seats, people, that doesn't mean that's the only way to do it, right? So when we thought of our business model, we said, actually, we need to flip that because we need to make it about the customer. Don't get me wrong, these large firms or even the smaller ones who have that model are all about the customer. But equally, the way they make money or the way they make profits is by selling people. That's not our model. We'd much rather deploy a team at a fixed price, for example, and deliver value for longer term sort of partnerships. So one of these data examples I gave, heavyweight data companies that we wanted to work with at the beginning of this year, we've signed a long-term partnership with them because they recognize our expertise in the spaces we play in, which they don't have. So and we're proving out to them equally whilst we do this, that our expertise is founded. We're practitioners. That's the bottom line. We help organizations not just go through the digital journey, but also we bring a lot of experience with us. Hence the reason why to date we haven't really hired graduates, because it's difficult to get people up to speed and justify someone's time at a client site in a paid situation where they're not really perceivably adding value.
Well, this is the classic issue with the consulting model, isn't it? The partner goes in, wins the business, and then you're serviced by someone who's got 6 months worth of experience that implements the solution, and it ends up with the frustration. And if you're able to cast a stone at the consulting world that adds a lot of value, that would be the stone that gets cast the most. I would suggest that sort of a difference between the sale and then the resulting service. And I think if you look at and I think that's a particular danger with some of the big four as a model. If you look at some of the real fast growth consultancies, it has been about that depth of specialization, and you mentioned the word practitioners there. The ability to put a great team together and take that team and really drive it further forward and really look at that customer first and say, look, let's not think first about how you said the tail, not the head. I think that's so important and testament to why the business is not, as you said, stood still over this sort of period and moved backwards, but actually being able to move further forward to be agile and versatile enough to make sure that you are moving further forward and taking the business and your customers further forward with you as that's happening. And that to me is very, very exciting to see. Dishang, let's finish with one last question for you, and that's about the future and what lies ahead. If you're to sort of talk about 2-3 things that you're particularly excited about over the course of 2021, what would you term that? What can we get excited about looking out for you over the course of this year?
Yeah, no, good question, Toby. Look, I think just looking backwards to define what comes next is important. So last year was tough, and what we feel we did is we built a strong foundation so that we would be ready for when the market is ready. And last year, I can say unequivocally the checkbooks were closed, right? No one was taking their wallet or purse out to spend money because everyone was in a world of uncertainty. This year, and I'm talking about from January actually, everyone's almost come back after the New Year break, and they've basically said, okay, we can't wait any longer. We can see a path to, if you like, redemption with reference to the vaccines on the COVID front. And therefore, we as businesses, the ones that are hiring us, for example, can't be seen to be standing still, because otherwise we're going to get left behind as well. Yeah. So what that meant is, that's meant greater interest in what we do. And as I said, we've won some business early this year, which took a lot longer. And this is predicated on a lot of the conversations we started last year. I'll be honest with you, it's not happened overnight. Equally with partnerships. So I think that maybe the few call-outs I would make is, obviously, I mentioned an award earlier. That's going to come out. So that's something that it's in the data space. So data is one of our key areas of success and expertise. So expect to see more on that from us, especially around our products. So our products being Smart Dash, ESG, and Startup Tracker, I think, where you can really make a difference to these organizations. That's one thing. The second thing is general expansion, of course, because we're seeing more demand. But we don't put success down like maybe traditional consulting businesses on number of people. That's not what we're doing, right? As I said earlier, we're leveraging technology. So the more deals we win with leverage technology with our partners, that's success for us. And as a third point is global expansion or international expansion. We're looking to expand into 2 regions, hopefully this year, one being the Middle East, and secondly the US, probably on the East Coast. But yeah, we're in deep discussions about setting up shop in the Middle East right now. So because frankly, the things we do, that market is ready for it. The Middle East, like a lot of countries that go towards Asia or that towards the East, tend to be a few steps behind when it comes to financial services compared to the UK and US, for example, and even Germany and France and all the countries like that. So, we've seen and recognized a gap, but equally, there's a big startup ecosystem in that MENA GCC region, which we recognize, and it's an area of expertise for us. And one area where I don't think, well, actually, let me put it differently. I think we are better placed than most organizations, big and small, is our background in startups and our entrepreneurial backgrounds and how we've lived it and breathed it. You made the point earlier, right? When I was investing, a good team can pivot a bad idea and make it a success. A average team can take an amazing idea and fail. So you know what? When people buy, they buy from people. They don't buy products. So it's all about relationship building. So we're doing that all the time. And that's the foundation I talked about last year. We're building relationships. We knew that the likelihood of getting any value out of them was low, but we put the hard yards in because you have to. If you don't put the hard yards in, people need to feel value. And the problem with the situation we find ourselves in is that we're smaller compared to these guys. So we have to put more effort in, which is fine by us, right? Because we build longer term, deeper relationships as a result. So those are just some of the highlights we see coming.
Right. So even if that is just if that was everything, just some, it makes it even more exciting about what we can expect to hear. Listen, it is a pleasure as always to hear your thoughts, to see how the business has developed, and some hugely exciting things you talked about there, and based off a foundation of a really rock solid business strategy that I think is hugely exciting and shifting the market in terms of what we can expect to see. So, Dishang, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. If people have heard a little bit about this and want to find out more, what's the best way of them getting in touch with you?
My email's on the website, or get in touch with me on LinkedIn, or anything. I'm always open to speak. I just love networking. So even if it's just for a chat or some advice, I'm more than happy to help. No problem at all.
Good man. Well, it's always worthy of a conversation. I can tell that from first-hand experience. Dishang, absolute pleasure. Lovely to have you on the show. Thanks for coming on and talking to us all today and adding all of that insight and value. It's really generous of you. And thank you all for watching. We hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have, and I will see you soon on another episode of Fintech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.